What's good, YouTube? Welcome back. Today it is Lazy Daze Tubby and I'm back at it again on my solo channel doing some more history reaction for you guys today, and it is some more Kings and Generals content for you, and it is their series The Mongols Invasions, and we are doing Invasion of Vietnam. I'm really looking forward to finding out what they've got in store for me today. Kings and Generals are making some amazing content and telling a great story throughout this series, so if you haven't already, head over to their page, links in the description box down below. If you guys are enjoying my reaction and looking forward to future reactions, then like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, but we're going to jump straight into this one.
While Kublai Khan's invasions of Japan are his most famous foreign ventures, his dreams of conquest were not restricted to the land of the rising sun. In Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Myanmar and Indonesia were all subject to the wrath of the Great Khan. But there as well, Mongol forces failed to achieve the great successes they had seen earlier in the century. In this video, we shall discuss an invasion as fascinating as that against Japan, the Mongol invasion of Vietnam. 13th century Vietnam was divided into two states, Dai Viet in the north, known as An Nam to the Chinese, and Champa in the south. Dai Viet was the first to encounter Mongol armies in 1258. In an effort to open a southern front against the Song dynasty, Kublai conquered the kingdom of Dali in Yunnan, and his general Yuri Yankadai, son of the famous Subutai, led an army into Dai Viet. With fighting limited to the mainly level uplands and the Red River, Mongol cavalry easily overcame Vietnamese forces. Dai Viet's new king in 1258 sought to avoid further conflict by sending ambassadors, hostages and tribute. While successful, Yuri Lankadai found that Vietnam's climate and the tropical disease wreaked havoc on men and horses used to more moderate climates.
So they got a bit of information yet they still tried it.
Not long after, Champa also agreed to pay tribute to the Great Khan, and relations were cordial over the following years. However, Kublai began asking for both monarchs to submit to him in person and confirm their allegiance, which both put off in favour of continued tribute missions. By 1279, the fall of the Song dynasty now brought the Yuan Empire to the borders of Vietnam, making their refusal less acceptable, as was their housing of fleeing Song officials.
I see. Makes sense.
Of greater interest to Kublai, though, was the economic power of Champa. Positioned on valuable maritime trade routes, Kublai saw Champa as key to controlling Southeast Asian trade. With the failure of its king, Indravarman VI, to submit to Kublai in person in 1280, and the imprisonment of Yuan envoys in 1282, Kublai had his pretext for war.
Of course, you don't fuck with
don't
fuck with the Mongol ambassadors or ambassadors.
Benefit of putting Dai Viet in a vice grip between Yuan China and an occupied Champa, and would hopefully bring it to heel as well. In December 1282, Sogatu, a hero of the final war against the Song dynasty and governor of Fujian, departed with 5,000 men drawn from former Song territory aboard 100 transport ships, arriving near the Cham capital of Vijaya in February 1283. After brief resistance, Vijaya fell to Sogatu, who found that King Indravarman and Prince Harijit had fled into the mountains.
So they've got the capital, but I don't think they're going to be able to deal with the guerrilla warfare.
A month was wasted in fruitless negotiation with Cham envoys, and in March, Sogatu took his army to attack Indravarman, but was ambushed and driven back with heavy losses. Retreating back to the coast where he made landfall, he cleared land to plant rice to feed his men, sent envoys to the Khmer Empire, who were detained, and sent messages to the Yuan court for aid. Initially, the court's response was slow, still planning for a third invasion of Japan, and it was not until March 1284 when an army of 20,000 was dispatched to aid Sogatu, joining him in his march to take Thuat Chau and Hoa Chau. By August 1284, the Yuan court had received maps showing the land routes through Dai Viet to Champa, and it was declared that Kublai's son, Tokhon, would lead a force overland to assist Sogatu. Dai Viet was ordered to help supply this army, but they refused, and came to the conclusion that this was a pretext for a Yuan conquest of Dai Viet. Under Prince Chen Hungdao, they began preparing their armies. In January 1285, Prince Tokhon led his army in 6 columns over the border from Yunnan into Vietnam. The forces sent against Tokhon were quickly overcome, and captured ships allowed them to cross the Phu Luong River in February.
Oh, so it was that easy.
Sogatu was meanwhile marching north, the 2 commanders undertaking a great pincer movement on Dai Viet.
This
Prince
is looking
Hungdao
bad
divided his
for the
forces to try and
Vietnamese.
prevent Sogatu from linking up with Tokhon, but Sogatu overwhelmed them, capturing 400 renegade Song officials. By the time he linked up with Tokhon, the prince had constructed a full river fleet, placed under the command of Omar, and together undertook a full offensive against Dai Viet, Omar driving its king out to sea, while Tokhon and Sogatu captured the capital, Hanoi. With Hanoi's seizure, the Yuan experienced their final success of this campaign. In Hanoi, their forces and supply lines were overextended, running low on food, while heat and disease took their toll, and suffered a defeat at Hamtu Pass in
So those issues from the first fight are coming
June,
back to haunt it.
where an important commander was killed by poisoned arrows. Tokhon, seeing their position as untenable, decided to call a full retreat back to Yuan territory. So swiftly was this done that Tokhon somehow failed to inform Sogatu of the retreat, who suddenly realized he was left
Can you imagine being left? Wow.
isolated deep in
unfortunate.
enemy territory. Hurriedly he forced his way north, but the Vietnamese harried him the entire way until at Su Ming on the Yuan border his army was surrounded and Sogatu was killed in the fighting. This was a disastrous end to the campaign, and Kublai was so furious he refused to allow Tokhon back to the capital. By 1286, Kublai had finally given up on invading Japan, but frustrated by failures, and his mind increasingly clouded by drink and depression, he ordered a 3rd invasion of Dai Viet. Special care was taken for this invasion. Supply ships were ordered from all along the southern Chinese coast to ferry troops and provide the food necessary for the great army being assembled. 70,000 Mongol, Jurchen and northern Chinese, 6,000 troops from Yunnan, 1,000 former Song soldiers, and 17,000 Loi people from the island of Hainan, for a total of 94,000 men, not including the crews of the 500 warships and transports. Tokhon was placed in overall command again, his final chance to redeem himself before his aging father. In October 1287, the Yuan army set out, splitting into 2 major forces. 18,000 were taken by Omar and Fan Yi aboard ships sailing along the coast, while Tokhon took the main army overland. A 3rd force of 6,000 travelled west of the main army to act as a diversionary force. In December, the main army crossed the border in 2 columns and defeated several Dai Viet forces, marching to Van Kiep on the Bac Dang River to await the arrival of Omar's fleet, who arrived after fighting off a Vietnamese navy. Despite early success, neither force had brought much food, expecting to be supplied by the transport fleet. Tokhon waited for the supply fleet until the end of January 1288, but unbeknownst to him, much of the supply fleet was blown off course by a storm, and the rest were attacked by the Vietnamese navy. With food supplies running low, Tokhon marched on to Hanoi, hoping to resupply there. The city fell without opposition in February, but to their horror, they found there wasn't a grain of rice left within. The defenders had stripped it in their flight.
Oh, well
The
played
increasingly
by the
desperate Yuan
Vietnamese.
forces went to great effort to gather food, until learning of the disaster which befell the supply fleet. Tokhon ordered the army back to stockades they had constructed at Van Kiep, and by the end of March, his men on the verge of starvation he ordered a general retreat back to China. With the Yuan forces reaching wit's end, the Vietnamese attacked. Their route north was harried by continual ambushes and the destruction of roads and bridges to hamper their movements. Tokon grew so worried he boarded a warship for the return.
He left his men.
On April 9th, 1288, Omar's fleet was sailing past the mouth of the Bac Dang River when a group of Vietnamese ships, commanded by Prince Hung Dao, sailed out to meet him at high tide. Eager for some sort of victory, Omar took a portion of the fleet and attacked, the Vietnamese quickly routing before the Yuan warships. Yet as they proceeded upriver after the Vietnamese fleet, the trap was sprung. Wooden stakes placed along the river bottom impaled the larger Yuan vessels and tore apart their hulls as the tide receded. With the Yuan ships immobilized, the Vietnamese turned about and attacked. Helpless, many Yuan soldiers jumped into the river, drowning or being picked off by the arrows of Dai Viet, and Omar was captured. Another fleet commander, Fan Yi, attempted to rescue Omar, but his vessels were surrounded and boarded, with Fan Yi himself killed in the fighting. 400 ships were captured by day's end.
What a shame. I think that would be crazy as well. Old naval warfare, we had to fight on the ships. That would be so scary.
And the victory was followed up a few days later when the supply fleet finally arrived, turned into the Bac Dang River, and was itself captured. When Tokon learned of the rest of the fleet's destruction, he abandoned trying to return via water. Ship, and, unable to take the main roads due to traps and patrols, rode hard through side routes all the way back into China. Most of the Great Army was left to be destroyed in the wilderness.
So all of those men,
proved to be a
how many of the
fiasco
97,000 survived?
Only a few years after the destruction of the Great Armada off the shores of Kyushu, another fleet and army were destroyed with little to show for it. Tokon was sent into political exile after both disastrous campaigns. While Bac Dang was a masterfully executed victory by Prince Hung Dao, Dai Viet and Champa had suffered terribly over both campaigns, and both kingdoms, to avoid another invasion, began sending tribute and recognized Kublai's authority.
Okay, so it kind of achieved
Today,
it.
Bac Dang is a highly celebrated episode in Vietnam's history. The tactics and strategy of Hung Dao were studied by the Vietnamese during the Vietnam War.
Okay, nice.
Such lessons were lost on Kublai, and he attempted more invasions, which we're going to cover soon, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel and have pressed the bell button.
I am definitely looking forward to finding out more information in regards to that. So if you guys are looking forward to my next reaction, then like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, but I will catch you in the next video.